Hello, and welcome back to the Wishing You Well podcast, where we help you navigate your wellness journey each and every week. I'm Amy Albero.
And I'm Catherine Van Eyck. We're both licensed therapists, and we love simplifying all of the wellness trends and happenings out there. Today, we are welcoming back Elisabeth DiDonato. We love having Elisabeth on, and her episodes are some of our most listened to. So we're really glad she's back. Elisabeth is a holistic dietitian who meets with clients here at Revive. She has a food as medicine approach to her work, which we are huge proponents of here at Revive, being a holistic wellness practice. If you haven't checked out past episodes with Elisabeth, definitely hop to it. She discusses the gut-brain connection in one, living with chronic illness in another, and herbalism in a third. She's full of knowledge, and we can't wait for you to hear what she has to say today about navigating the holidays with family and food.
So happy to have Elisabeth back. Welcome, Elisabeth. Living and well life is put together. Authentic.
We feel it.
Take care of ourselves. Elisabeth, we're so excited to have you back again, and excited, of course, to get into our episode. But before we do, we wanted to check in with you, how you've been doing since we last chatted with you, and what your self-care is looking like these days.
Yeah, well, again, so happy to be back. Excited to talk about this next topic. So far, recently, self-care has been pretty good. I'm definitely feeling like the change of seasons is hitting me pretty hard. So I've been taking a lot more time to kind of check in and see, what exactly I need in this moment. I was away for 3+ weeks, having so much fun. I went to Alaska and saw the most incredible things. So between the time difference and just the long travel days, my body's definitely kind of it took a toll on my body. So I'm kind of starting to get adjusted to that. I signed up for infrared sauna this week. My birthday's actually this weekend. So I'm excited to just kind of celebrate that and relax. And yeah, that's pretty much what's going on with me.
Your trip looked amazing.
It was. Highly recommend if you've never been to Alaska, or if you have the opportunity to go to Alaska, do it. It's well worth the hype. Saw the Northern Lights, cried the happiest tears. It was incredible.
And did you do Alaska the whole time, or were you in Washington for part of it?
We flew into Seattle and then flew into Anchorage. We did half the trip on land. So we kind of went all through the national parks and things like that. And then we got on the cruise ship and then went through like Glacier National Park and all that down to like Juneau and Skagway and all that. And then ended in Vancouver. So then we flew out of Canada. But yes, Alaska pretty much the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like such a fantasy of a trip.
Definitely bucket list trip for sure.
Catherine, how about you? How's your self-care been?
It's been decent. I know that the three of us were just briefly chatting before, just like a lot of resting, a lot of relaxing while I still can, but also being proactive and thinking ahead. I ordered a red light panel, like a handheld one. Probably, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see what I'm doing with my hands to see how big this is. So it's like pretty small. And it's, red light. If anyone's listened to our episode with Jack Gladstone, we talked a little bit about red light, but super good for you, super good for healing. So I'm really looking forward to using that, especially as I, kind of hunker down and the days get darker. I'm really gonna love being able to have this little handheld thing for myself here.
Is it the BioLite one? Is it called
the Loom Box?
Loom Box. Oh, I've never heard of that one.
I was highly influenced.
Okay. I'm curious how you like it. Let me know how you like it.
I will let you know. Yeah, there was some like Labor Day sale. Hopped on it.
Yep. It's the way to go.
What can you do?
That sounds great. So you're trying to both like meet yourself where you're at and then think about kind of future you.
Yeah. Future me who's going to be I don't know. I don't know what I'm imagining, but like, I'm not going to be going to somewhere that has red light because I'm going to just, I'm going to be home a lot. So thinking about how I can make my space, my healthcare space, also a nursery at the same time.
Create a sanctuary for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Amy? How are you? How's your self-care?
I'm like, as we're talking, I'm like trying to think about it. I'm feeling very off, which seems to be like a theme forever at this point, but like dealing with a lot of like brain fog and just low energy and just really feeling pretty crappy. So I'm trying to meet myself, I guess, where I'm at, and trying to find the balance between, do I need rest, or do I like encourage myself to do things that will maybe help me feel better? And so I'm like trying to find the sweet spot between like resting, sleeping, and like getting up, doing things that will be helpful. So I don't really know where I've landed. Today it looked like kind of sleeping in a little extra, but I don't know. So I guess I guess my self-care is boiled down to like, I'm figuring it out at this point and trying to just, I think, be as kind to myself and as patient with myself in this fucking long ass process as I possibly can. So it's not anything glamorous or fun or exciting today, but that's where I'm at.
I think that shows a lot of just like personal self-growth too, that you are taking the time to check in with yourself and meeting yourself where you're at, and, acknowledging that maybe you do just need to sleep in. And to me, hearing that from what I do, that to me sounds glamorous and exciting and worthwhile. So I think that should be celebrated. So
that's fair. Yeah, I don't need to judge it in that way, that it's like this, I don't know, boring self-care or something. But you're right. There is a luxury in that, or a glamour in that too.
100%. 100%.
I also think that that trying to strike that balance and try to figure out, okay, do I rest now, or do I do things now so that I can rest later? And like, think of future Amy. Like, that's such a hard thing to figure out what you need. And like, sometimes we're not always right either. And sometimes it does, but then like when it is right and we like actually do, okay, well, I'm going to take that rest then, and we feel that, then we find the benefit of it, and we see how not boring it is.
Right. Yeah. No, it's definitely like my own journey of, again, like trying to be gentle with myself and not beat myself up for not being able to do the things that normally like I want to do, or I feel like I should be doing. So that's definitely, as you said, Elisabeth, like a lot of growth there. So
100%. And I feel like this is something we've talked about in a previous podcast episode, but maybe not. But that's more like getting into and tapping into your intuition of kind of that mind-body connection, but taking time to listen to your body and what your body needs, and not necessarily being influenced by what your mind is telling you you should or you shouldn't be doing, which again emphasizes a lot of self-growth and, that you weren't in the same place that you were yesterday or a month ago or a year ago and things like that. So it's kind of that idea of that linear healing that a lot of people think that, healing is, but in reality, it's this up and down, kind of graph trajectory, all that stuff.
Right. Exactly. So I'm glad that you're here with us today. Just, you'll be my grounding force here to try not to get too critical of my healing journey.
I love it. That's what I'm here for.
Well, I guess with that being said, you are back again, and as Catherine said in our intro, whenever you're on, you're one of our most popular guests that we've had. So you're such a great resource. But if we have listeners that are tuning in for the first time, haven't had the chance to meet you yet, can you give our listeners a little bit about you, your background, your approach?
Absolutely. So if you have not met me yet, my name is Elisabeth. I am a holistic dietitian and I work with Revive. So I'm here, and My approach is emphasizing the holistic approach, so the whole body approach. A lot of what I do focuses on internal healing and focusing on that root cause. So understanding that it's not only a one size fits all approach, but it encompasses a bunch of different parts of health and wellness. So we talk about nutrition, diet stuff. We talk about mindset, sleep, hormone balance. We bring in herbal remedies. We bring in, movement, all these different aspects of health and wellness, and try to, just like we were talking about before, meet you where you're at. So I meet my clients where we're at, and focus on one thing at a time. So we just kind of start building from there. And that's pretty much the gist of what I do. Of course, there's other things that come into play based on the person, the case, what disease state we might be going through. A lot of what I do is autoimmune focused or GI focused. So understanding how any type of GI or gastrointestinal symptom that you're feeling is maybe linked to an emotion or a stored trauma or, something else that might be dictating those physical symptoms. So like, again, that mind-body connection we bring to surface a lot as well.
I feel like every time you talk about what you do, every time I'm like, whoa, this is just so cool. I'm so excited that you're here. And like, I'm so excited for everyone that gets to work with you.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot.
And we have you here at this particular time of the year because, as you're describing in terms of the way that you approach your work, like there's so much more than just food and what we are consuming in that sense, but that when it comes to nourishing ourselves, when it comes to what we're eating, how we're feeling, all of that stuff, there are much deeper influences. And during this time of year, it feels like food maybe and those outside influences really converge when we think about, food and the holidays. And so I guess essentially what we wanted to talk with you about today was that people can associate foods with certain holidays, and this could be really challenging for people. Can you speak to that? Have you seen that?
Absolutely. And when I am working with clients, especially around this time, I notice the stress just totally increases dramatically because of this idea that food really is the center of so many celebrations, so many holidays, so many social gatherings. But food is the center to so many different celebrations, holidays, traditions, etc. And a lot of that is heavily influenced on just the way you were brought up, and kind of the way that society sees holidays and sees, all these different gatherings. And so when I am working with my clients, especially if a client is having a negative relationship or working on their relationship with food, this can be a big trigger for a lot of people. So we have a bunch of different things that we kind of talk through, and I know we're going to get more into that as we go.
What is it about it that makes it more triggering, would you say?
I think a big piece is you're with your family and your loved ones. And a lot of it is like what I've run into before is, you come from eating a certain way or, based on your heritage or whatever. And then all of a sudden you kind of show up and maybe you eat differently, or maybe you have a different approach to food. And that could be taken as negative sometimes to family of like, oh, you don't like my food, or, why aren't you eating this? Or, it could be a little bit more judgmental. And so that could bring up a lot for people when we are actively trying to work on that relationship, and then having that judgment piece come in. And then we have this like self-criticism voice start to get louder and louder of, what am I doing? Am I doing this right? Should I be listening to my, parents or my loved ones, or should I be, focusing and listening to myself and what my body needs? And then it's just this back and forth. So a lot of it is just kind of this peer pressure of, we need to eat a certain way because of the tradition and how tradition is so big when it comes to the holidays. So we feel that peer pressure come on to eat the foods that maybe bring up this emotion for us.
Yeah, food just seems to hold so much more meaning than like if somebody's working on the way that they are nourishing themselves. That's one way that it can mean for them, but like individually, but then collectively as a family, it can mean something totally different. So like the two crossing over just gets really messy.
It does. And a lot of what I talk about too, especially during the holidays and specifically when I'm working on, healing someone's relationship with food, is this idea that there's not just one form of hunger. There's actually 7 forms of hunger. And one of them is the one that we would think of like, oh, I'm hungry. I have that physical sensation of a hunger cue. So I'm going to nourish that and I'm going to eat something. My stomach's growling. I feel lightheaded. I feel hangry, all those different things. We're going to nourish that. That's one form of hunger, but there's so many other ones too. There's nose hunger. There's eye hunger. There's, just emotional hunger. There's all these other forms of hunger. And I talk about this in depth with my clients, but for example, you walk into a room and you smell your grandma's, apple pie that she's cooking. And to you, that brings this feeling of nostalgia come up of you're like, oh, wow, that smells so good. That takes me back to when I was 5 years old and I would run around with my cousins and I would eat it. And, it's just this around the holidays, especially, but just in general, you walk into a room, you smell that, it brings you back to a certain time that triggers nose hunger. It also triggers emotional hunger a little bit too. And you may not physically feel hungry in that moment, but those two hungers being activated makes you want to enjoy that food. And so a lot of what we do is allow ourselves to be gentle with ourselves with, even if you physically don't feel hungry, you can still honor those other forms of hunger because again, there's more to hunger and our relationship with food than just the physical part of it. Hopefully that makes sense. But those are, the different pieces of that holistic approach that I talked about before of like this whole body approach and that it's not just a one size fits all. We're not just honoring our physical, hunger cues, but just like you said, Catherine, that food can bring up so much for people. And it is. It's something we use for social gatherings. It's something we use sometimes for just emotions and using it in a more positive way versus using it in a punishment way is something I talk about a lot too.
Mm-hmm. As you're talking about this, I'm thinking kind of as you're both saying, like the food is so personal and on so many levels. And so sometimes an adjustment to like your approach to food on a particular day or maybe family gathering day can feel like a rejection of whatever that person or the family culture. And I was also kind of reflecting on like my husband and I grew up in really different households as it relates to food and holidays. And my family is, we're Italian American, so like steeped in a lot of tradition, like the 7 fishes on Christmas Eve and all of that. I don't like fish to that degree. And yet there's all of this kind of, again, nostalgia, tradition, pressure, again, in all of that, where my husband doesn't resonate with that. But his family, even though the food isn't as meaningful, the act of eating is, meaning like their family motto or mantra around the holidays is feast or famine. And like holidays are a time to like really feast and like overeat and indulge. And it's just been really interesting to kind of go between both of our families and have like these different layers of pressure almost, or not even, it's so passive. It's not active pressure, but such an underlying idea and commitment to like what we're meant to be doing during these family gatherings.
Right. And I mean, I feel like there's this script that a lot of times we feel like we have to follow based on kind of how we were raised or, what we were just exposed to early on of, oh, you have to have the 7, like I grew up in a super traditional Italian household too. And yeah, you have to have the 7 fishes or, you have a big meat dish and then followed up by pasta on Christmas Day, all of these different traditions again. And it's interesting when you have, two traditions kind of coming together and trying to navigate that as well. And understanding too that the core of those traditions is food.
Mm-hmm. Right. Which
just brings a whole other layer when you are somebody who is trying so hard to strengthen and rebuild on that relationship with food. So yes, during this time of year, this is something I am seeing over and over and over again as we try to kind of navigate how to approach the work we've been putting in and our mindset and really building up strength within ourselves to kind of navigate the holiday season.
Yeah. I mean, where do you even start? How do you start navigating that with your clients?
Well, a lot of it is kind of the work that we are doing prior. So focusing on building that and strengthening that relationship with food, building on understanding that mind-body connection and listening to our hunger and fullness cues, building on mindfulness. So a lot of what I do is talking about mindful eating. So when we go into a holiday party or, a family gathering, family dinner, whatever it is, how can we bring all of the things that we've been working on in our sessions to really emphasize that mind-body connection and listen to our bodies and not let other judgments play a role in how we physically and mentally feel. With that aside, there's a lot of things that I would just emphasize for anybody to kind of do when they approach the holidays, because I've seen this time and time again, that especially around Thanksgiving, right? We have this big meal that we have later on in the day. And I can't tell you how many people come to me and tell me, all right, I'm not going to eat anything the morning of, I'm going to work out super hard. I haven't been to the gym in months. And at Thanksgiving, I worked at a gym, and Thanksgiving morning, it's a madhouse in there because everyone's trying to burn as much calories as they possibly can in order to eat as much as they can later on in the day. And this is something I really, really try to break down with people and my clients in general of, this is probably one of the worst things that you can do for your mind and your body and your relationship with food, because what you're doing is emphasizing the diet culture way to approach the holidays. And so what I talk about too is always, always, always starting the day with a balanced breakfast. That's one of the best things that you could do for your body when you're, waking up on Thanksgiving morning and you're going to have a delicious dinner later on that you've been looking forward to all year, because who doesn't love Thanksgiving dinner? But having that balanced breakfast is going to allow yourself to not get too hungry when you walk into your aunt or uncle or grandparents or parents' house, whoever's house you're going to, and then end up having your blood sugar spike or drop too quickly, and then potentially overindulging and then actually feeling physically sick, right? And just uncomfortable. And so that's one key takeaway, that if you're getting anything from this, one thing that you can do for yourself is always make sure you prioritize that balanced breakfast. And so balancing your meal, that would incorporate some type of starchy carbohydrate, some type of non-starchy carbohydrate. So starchy carbs would be, grains, potatoes, anything that's going to kind of raise your blood sugar. Non-starchy is going to be your, greens or peppers, nightshades, things like that. And then some type of protein. So if you're going to do eggs, or if you're going to do sausage, or if you're going to do, nut butters, then you're going to have those dietary fats as well. So that could be your chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, avocados, oils, etc. And so incorporating all of these different nutrients on your plate will keep your blood sugar stable and then lower the risk of overindulging and not feeling great afterwards when you do sit down for your Thanksgiving or holiday meal.
Well, I imagine in addition to kind of keeping your blood sugar well managed, it also helps you feel more grounded, I guess, in your sense of hunger, so that you can be more mindful or less maybe emotional when it comes to whatever, food that you're going to consume.
Absolutely. And a lot of people that I work with, and maybe even just people listening, may not really know what blood sugar spikes or drops might feel like. But have you ever walked into a room and been absolutely famished? Like you're so hungry, you can eat your hand. And so you end up eating so fast. The first thing you can grab, you just kind of inhale it. You don't even really sit and have a conversation with someone. You just eat so fast because you're so incredibly hungry. Most people have experienced that before in their lifetime. And so that's usually because we have waited so long to eat something that our blood sugar dropped. And when our blood sugar drops, it like tenfold our hunger cues. And so we're going to try to grab the quickest form of energy, which is glucose, and that's carbohydrates. And so when you've waited so long to eat something, you notice you tend to grab the quickest and easiest thing, which again is going to be maybe a bag of chips, maybe a bowl of pasta, maybe rice, maybe cookies, cakes, all those things, because they're glucose and they're going to hit your bloodstream really fast. So you don't end up going into a dangerous low blood sugar zone. And when our blood sugar is stable going into a meal, then we can really tap into what our body wants, right? The foods that you really love and the foods that you are excited to eat versus, okay, I got to eat something really quickly or else I may or may not pass out. And then we end up overdoing that because then our blood sugar is going to start to go up and then we might feel full and then we might not actually be able to sit and enjoy the, sweet potatoes or the turkey that your parents made or whatever it is because we overdid it on the, fast acting glucose beforehand. So yes, when our blood sugar is more balanced, we have this ability to tap more into our intuitive eating principles and really nourish the physical part of hunger, but also that emotional piece too, where if you're looking forward to eating those more glucose, fast acting carbohydrates, great, go for it. But you also can eat it in a way that's not going to make you feel terrible afterwards.
So you've really set up two kind of steps here. One is to, like, well before the holiday, well before the family gathering, to hopefully you're already strengthening your relationship with food. You're already trying to work on the personal aspect, like Amy said. And then physically, the day of, you're actually trying to send a message to your body, set yourself up physically for whatever's happening by having that balanced meal.
Yes, exactly. And the first thing is the balanced meal. The other idea, day of would be keep your mind open that all foods can fit in your day. So, adding colors to your plate as much as we can to provide that physical nourishment, but also put the foods on your plate that you've been looking forward to all year that are going to provide you with that emotional and, mental nourishment as well. And so that idea, that mindset of all foods can fit is huge. And waking up that morning and reminding yourself of that, maybe you need to, say an affirmation or two, or, just kind of talk it out with yourself. That's an important piece as we heal that relationship with food and with our bodies. Another thing I talk about too is using tools to aid in digestion. So if you do end up eating a little bit more than you would have hoped, then there are different herbs and different, things that you can use afterwards to just aid your body as it digests. So fennel tea, lemon balm tea, ginger tea, all of those are going to help you when you feel stuffed and you kind of just want to enjoy the rest of your night, but maybe you physically can't get up. So you want to have a nice cup of tea after dinner, or even using digestive bitters, which, that could be specific greens or even a digestive bitter tincture. I talk about this with my clients as well, but having that before your big meal can really help aid your body in digestion to, again, just make the whole process a lot smoother for your mind and your body. And I already mentioned this, but adding as much as you can to your plate rather than saying you have to take things away. So if you're looking at your plate and all you see are whites and maybe oranges, can you add some greens? Can you add some purples? Can you add some, yellow colors to your plate to just brighten it up a little bit? And then that you're getting those phytonutrients, which are going to help balance your blood sugar and benefit your gastrointestinal tract as well.
That's such a good tip around Thanksgiving, because it feels like all the foods are like beige and brown.
Yes, always. And that was kind of the key where I was going with that, because you look at your plate and you see mashed potatoes, you see turkey, you see ham, you see maybe even sweet potato mash, you see, all these different
gravy.
foods. And then you look down, gravy, and you look down and it's all neutral colors, which I love neutrals. But when you want to, heal your gut and work on digestion and positively impact your mind and body and your mood in general, you want to get more colors on there. So grab the spinach, grab the asparagus, grab the, cabbage salad if you have that. Whatever it is, you can just kind of play around with it. And if you don't have that, and I think this is something we can talk about later too, offer to bring it. Like, make that an opportunity to create something that your body's going to love, and that maybe you're going to help your family eat more colors too in the process.
I love what you're saying. Like, as a whole, it seems like you're not trying to tell anybody that they need to so strictly stick to this new lifestyle that they've been trying to adopt, and reject all their family traditions, reject their family's, desires, etc. Or even like reject their own desires to indulge and like embrace those traditions too. What you're saying is like really this both and mindset around you can still follow what you want to be following and enjoy yourself over these holidays.
And that's the key word there, is it's not a or situation, it's an and situation. So you can have both. And that's a big thing that I work on with my clients too, because a lot of times it feels like it has to be an either or situation. How can I work on my relationship with food, but also have the piece of cake? And that's where we tap into mindset and reframing our mindset and, strengthening this mind-body connection of really tuning in and listening to what does our body need in this moment? Because maybe your body does need a piece of cake in order to feel satisfied, because if you keep pushing that off, you're going to want that so much more. There is nothing sexier than wanting something so badly and keep telling yourself that you can't have it. Like, you just want it that much more. So this idea of, again, tuning in and giving yourself permission to have these foods is what's going to help build on knowing your, like, how much to put on your plate, or knowing how much to eat, or, kind of this allowing yourself to not go into a negative head spiral of, I shouldn't have had that, and just judge all these judgmental thoughts coming up.
I think that is so important, because I do feel like, and I've definitely been in this mindset in the past, but there really is like a screw it kind of mentality that can go into the holidays, or this time of year, where it's even like from Halloween through the end of the year, where it's just like, I'll kind of like revisit it all after the first of the year or something like that. And doesn't need to be
I can't help but think of that Friends episode when Ross and Chandler are like on a fire escape, and Chandler talks about how much Ross is weighing, and Ross is like, I'm still hanging on to a lot of holiday weight.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Ross and Joey. But yes.
Ross and Joey.
Yes. Yeah. I know exactly what episode you're talking about. And yeah, it's like so many people associate the holidays with, these sweets and lots of food and maybe gaining some weight or whatever. And okay, I'll just, start fresh in the new year. Let's New Year's resolution, all of that. And that's when a lot of your more diet trends will kind of revamp up come January 1 and, all of that. And that's, again, just our society, our Western society of, what we've been taught early on and, all of those things coming together. But what we're trying to do is break those thoughts and acknowledge we can still enjoy the holidays without having this like negative thought spiral around it and saying this all or nothing approach, but instead, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but like have your cake and eat it too kind of thing.
Kind of perfect terminology.
Yeah.
What about when it comes to, so you did mention, and I love this, the opportunity to bring something as a way to introduce something maybe to your family, but just like bring something that will keep you on that same track while still enjoying all these other things. Obviously that will be like a conversation starter, or like it could potentially intrude on maybe somebody who typically makes the meals, or it could just like bring up stuff with the family. So like, how do you talk about the talking about it part when it comes to food traditions and stuff?
That's a great question. I think a big piece we talk about is just, the open line of communication. So if we can be open with our host or our hostess, and maybe that's our family, maybe that's friends, whoever it is, maybe it's work, just being open with them and having a conversation of, with what I'm working on now, with my health and wellness and, my food regimens, maybe it's something you're trying to avoid because of a physical symptom that you're experiencing, or maybe you have a certain reaction or even disease state that you have to avoid a certain food. Having that conversation and seeing whether there's going to be something you can eat there, or offering to bring something and say, I really love making this one dish. I'd love to bring it if you were, open to that idea. I really think everybody's going to love it. And really talking about it in a way that's fun and exciting, rather than, I hate the holidays because no one ever has anything for me. And it's just so stressful. And, then it makes what you're talking about seem like a negative thing. But what we're trying to do is reframe that into, oh, this is exciting. Maybe I could try something new. And, I'm excited about this new stage of my journey. And I'm kind of hoping that you would come along with me and, make it more enjoyable for myself as well. So we talk about that positive communication style, talking to your host or your hostess. And that comes into play when you don't have full control over what is going to be served at that meal, but offering to bring something, or just kind of talking to them about what it is that you're working on. And then that brings up maybe something that you could educate your family on, of, maybe talking about the gut-brain connection, or talking about digestion in general and how to help support that. And maybe you give your whole family fennel tea at the end of the night. I don't know. You can kind of play around with it and see what works best. And I think the key thing there would be that open line of communication, and really, really emphasizing it in a positive and exciting tone and manner goes a long way.
I was thinking about how, again, as Thanksgiving is all the beige foods. And I, especially like kind of a couple of years back when I was like kind of newer to, I guess, my health journey in a different way, I really wanted to bring a salad to my in-laws. And they were like, no, no one's going to eat it. Like, don't bother. No one's going to eat it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to eat it. So I brought it anyway. And along with I made like a nice, like harvesty looking veggie platter. And you know what? Both of them went. And even if they didn't, I felt like I had something that I enjoyed and could kind of like balance my plate a little bit more with. And it was fine. It was great for me and it was fine with everyone else.
And that's exactly kind of where I was going with that is at the end of the day, you're bringing something that you know you're going to eat and that you're going to feel comfortable eating and also enjoying the other foods as well if you wanted to. But you have this dish that whether everybody touches it or completely avoids it, you know you're going to be happy. And then also, there's nothing wrong with leftovers. Like everybody loves a good Thanksgiving leftover. So if nobody finishes it, then you get to bring it home and then you have leftovers for yourself. So it's kind of a win-win there, if you ask me.
Right. Is there something that you love to bring, Elisabeth?
Great question. I'm so happy you asked that. Yes. So I currently, and for the last probably, 7, 8, no, like maybe 9 now years, I do not eat dairy. It doesn't work with me. I just, I choose not to eat dairy. And so that kind of came up in conversation, especially around Thanksgiving, because a lot of those foods are cooked in butter, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, all these different things that my family would make cooked in butter. So I decided myself, you know what, I'm going to just create a dish and I'm going to bring it and see what everybody has to say about it. And so I made a seasonal macaroni and squash. Instead of cheese, I would use butternut squash. And I've been making it for the last 9 Thanksgivings. And the first Thanksgiving, people kind of liked it. They weren't quite sure what it was, but they tried it and they were open to it. I can tell you with 100% certainty right now that my entire family, extended family included, looks forward to this dish every single year. I can talk about it forever. I'm obsessed with it. It is so freaking good. And it's just because I wanted something delicious and comforting for myself. So I made a macaroni and cheese inspired dish, but used butternut squash as the sauce, which is 1, seasonal, and 2, extremely nutrient dense. And it's definitely had its tweaks along the way, but in general, like that is just it's become a tradition now where now they know, oh, Elizabeth's bringing the mac and squash for Thanksgiving. Like we're so excited for it. We bake it in the oven before, like I'll put breadcrumbs on top and then they'll bake it in the oven and everybody looks forward to it. So I've kind of taken control of my own health and what I knew I needed and created my own tradition that now everybody looks forward to. So it takes some time, but it can 100% happen. And if you have not tried it, I will. I know it's on my Instagram, but I repost it every single year. So keep an eye out for that recipe because it is so good.
Mm-hmm. Amy, do you have one other than the salad, or is that the thing?
Well, similar to Elisabeth, that this was several years ago, and now they just expect like Amy's bringing her salad and her like veggie platter. Like that's just, it's known that that's what I do. I tweak the salad every year, and then sometimes I'll also add. Depends how much time I have or how ambitious I am, but I'll usually bring another like warm veg, like whether it's Brussels sprouts or some sort of seasonal veggie as well. But yeah, now they just kind of like expect it. It's just part of the going down the list of like who's bringing what. Like I'm bringing some sort of seasonal salad and some sort of like harvesty looking vegetable platter as an app. So that's just what I'm doing.
Love that.
Catherine, what about you?
Well, I'd love to say that my family's embraced the things that I do, but sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And I've embraced that instead. So like, I'm kind of like the quote unquote, like weird one and like healthy one. So I'm always making alternative recipes to things. And in fact, when I don't, then I actually end up saying like, oh, this is actually made with refined sugar and regular flour. Like, have at it, enjoy. like I almost like opposite preface them. It's like, by the way, guys, this isn't like one of my recipes. Like, this is just a regular one. But I'd say like for holidays, yeah, it's like a Brussels sprout, butternut squash, red onion roasted sheet pan thing with some maple syrup and crushed red pepper, just tossed all together. So yummy. I think like my mom looks forward to that one. She's always like, are you going to make that Brussels sprout thing again? And I'm like, you like it? I feel like there's always so much left over, and then I bring it home and that's fine. But everyone else, they're just used to their loaded mashed potatoes and sweet potatoes and turkey. And okay, I'm going to have that, and I'm going to have these roasted Brussels sprouts. So, I mean, speaking of like from experience too, how do we communicate what we want to be nourishing ourselves with? Or like, how do we just communicate to our family who might not be as open to what we're doing? How do we do it in a way that doesn't sound judgmental to like what they're used to and what they would like?
But before you answer that, I also want to add in the layer of, I think sometimes that people interpret some of these changes as like, oh, you're on a quote unquote diet.
True.
And so I think that also might add to like some layer of judgment or shoulding on you about your behavior or your choices during this time of the year.
Absolutely. And I think a big piece of that question kind of stems to what I was talking about before of talking about these things with positivity and excitement of, this is actually a really great thing that I'm doing for myself. And, hear all the things that are great about it. Like, I feel good. I'm working on my mindset around food, whatever it is that you kind of feel comfortable talking to them about, but more in that positive and exciting manner, and opening that line of communication. And then a lot of it too is approaching the holiday with the thought of your family could judge you for this. They could, think that you are quote unquote going on a diet, or, it might feel like you maybe don't want to have this food that your aunt always makes every single year. And then it becomes kind of like an insult to her. I say that from personal experience. But this, again, open line of communication is super, super important. And it's also something you want to kind of do ahead of time as well, which is what my clients and I will work on and talk about, of getting in the right mindset before walking in and kind of using this as an opportunity to not only educate them, but also just show them different types of or different styles of eating that you can, I'll say it again, but have your cake and eat it too. You can enjoy all of these foods, but also have something else on the side. And then the judgment piece, I think when you're working and you're healing your relationship with food, that piece slowly and less intensely, for lack of a better term, impacts your decisions to eat a food or not eat a food. When you feel confident in what you're nourishing your body with, and, the way that you feel with a certain food or with a certain way of eating, then these judgments will slowly become less judgmental and more so this idea of like mirroring something that maybe that person is trying to work on themselves, of maybe they don't feel super confident in their relationship with food. And so that's a direct mirror that they're kind of projecting onto you, and so on and so forth. So we always approach that with warmth and openness and being super gentle, because we were once there, we might still be there. And so we just kind of want to have this open line of conversation, this open line of communication with those people, with our loved ones, and try to meet them where they are. But if they're kind of pushing back, then allow them to, but continue to do all the things that you've been doing to, reframe that mindset, get yourself into more of a positive way of thinking, remind yourself how you physically feel when you have these foods and all the steps that you've taken to get to this place. And also just kindly saying no, thank you, or not right now, thank you. If someone's asking you over and over again, oh, do you want to try my XYZ, whatever it is? No, thank you. I'm okay for now. Not right now. Thank you so much. And just, obviously be kind. And it in a perfect world, it will go smoothly. Of course, there's going to be bumps and bruises on the way. And the first holiday is always the hardest. So that's kind of just, something you work on each holiday by, each holiday, and kind of really do the back end work to feel confident walking in there, or as confident as you can feel to go in there. And yeah.
And it sounds like something you alluded to before is, and even if things don't go according to plan or how you intended, that there are things that you can do to feel better physically, and I imagine emotionally too, whether it's, fennel tea or something like that. But I imagine also kind of how you were saying to me at the beginning of this episode, like giving yourself the grace and space afterward, if things didn't go as you had wanted them to.
Yeah, then it's not the end of the world. You can, just pick back up where you were tomorrow. And something I'll say over and over again with the people I work with is just focus on one thing. If you can do one thing for yourself on that day, and maybe you wake up Thanksgiving morning and your one thing is to eat a balanced breakfast, then you could check that off. And then, you did something for yourself that day. Maybe your one thing is to go for a nice walk after you finish dinner. That's your one thing. And of course, if you have more things, the more the merrier, but focusing on one thing at a time, that's how you avoid getting overwhelmed and avoid this black and white way of thinking of, all right, I either do it all or I don't do anything. So another one thing that you could take from this whole podcast is focus on one thing at a time. So you wake up on Thanksgiving morning, you wake up on whatever holiday morning it is, and you just try to prioritize one thing that you could do for yourself that goes along with the steps that you've been taking to work on your healing journey, your healing of your relationship with your food, your healing on your relationship with your body, your healing on your physical symptoms, whatever it might be, do one thing and just try to start there. I think with anything, if you feel overwhelmed, just, try to take it step by step. You can't get to the finish line without taking the first step. So it's going to be tough in the beginning. And that's just kind of something we have to acknowledge and just understand for ourselves. But it's part of the journey. It's part of the process. And, like I said before, with my mac and squash, it was tough in the beginning, but we've gotten to a place where it's actually enjoyed. And, I feel confident going in and bringing it every single year. So it's try your best not to compare yourself to someone else that, maybe a year, 2 years, 9 years ahead of you, because they were once in your exact position. So meet yourself where you're at, be gentle with yourself, start super, super small. And as always, if you need extra support, definitely reach out and find someone that you can talk to about these kind of, these things, these thoughts.
Thank you. That was that was also so great, so informative. Do you mind sharing, resharing, since you've been here so many times before, but telling people where they can find this recipe, of course, and just follow you.
Yes, definitely keep an eye out for that recipe. My Instagram is Purely Rooted Health, and also TikTok. You can check me out there. I am, like I said before, I'm a dietitian here at Revive. So you can absolutely go through Revive and look me up and, contact Revive if you want to schedule a consultation with me. I'm so excited to meet you all. I'm so excited for you to listen to this and hopefully take something from this podcast and bring it into this wonderful and exciting and just celebratory time of year. So
thank you. And we'll be sure to reshare your mac and squash recipe as well.
Amazing. Amazing.
Elisabeth, thank you again for being here. And to all of you, to all of our listeners, thank you so much for being here as well, for listening, for following along, for your reviews, for subscribing to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much. That means so much to us. Also, be sure to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Revive Center for Wellness, where you can watch all full episodes of our podcast there, as well as our bonus weekly podcast, Reactivity TV, drops exclusively on YouTube. And that's where we share our therapist takes and perspectives to all things trending in movies and TV. You can follow us on Instagram at ReviveCFW. You can follow Catherine at Catherine Van Eyck, me at Amy Albero LCSW. Check out our website, revivecfw.com, and send us emails to wishingyouwell@revivecfw.com. Until next time, we are wishing you well.